Okay, we are recording. Jock, I have to ask you, based on looking at your NAF record and teams that you've been very successful with, what your opinion of the new High Elf sculpts are.
I'm glad you asked that. I've got thoughts on that.
Oh, okay. Should I save that? Should I save that for one of your takes?
Perhaps. Yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm technically #1 high elf coach in the world. What a proud boast to get the show off. To start with.
Small round of applause there. We'll give that.
Yeah, I mean, funnily enough, it is one of what I was thinking in terms of hot takes, and obviously just kindly released the other week there by James Workshop. And obviously there's a lot of hype and a lot of excitement about elves being able to murder dwarfs. The revenges will be ours. But I think people are going to be disappointed. Ultimately, I think high elves are not going to be as good as what people think they're going to be. So there you are. There's a brief hot take for you. They're not going to be that good.
Well,
they're going to be all right. Don't get me wrong. They're going to help.
I'll it more later. I was intrigued by them. I think they look quite cool. There's something. The thing that I find very weird about them is the presence of the elf knees. I just find a tiny bit odd. It does almost look like someone was drawing a beautiful design top down and kind of then gave up at a particular point.
What are you saying?
I don't know. A very public schoolboy affair.
Yeah.
High elves at the public school going out to play a spot of Bloodbowl.
Just don't let there be a bauble on the pitch.
I know the reference Tom was making there, and I feel like we should move on quickly.
If you play the intro.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to New Dice Please, the bite-sized Blood Bowl podcast brought to you by the people at Blood Bowl Live. My name is Chris. Joining me, as always, Mr. Scott Bryant. Scott, in a pack of celebrations, what is your go-to?
In a pack of celebrations, my go-to is Twix. Used to be the Maltesers, but I've got a bit nostalgic, maybe a bit bohemian in my old age. So yeah, go for the Twix.
I normally do everyone else's first, but I'm going to immediately just say I 100% agree with you. Like, the Twix being added to celebrations is a revelation, and we should all be pleased with the world we live in based on purely that fact. Joining us also, Mr. Tom Hovell. Tom, in a box of celebrations, what are you going for?
Maltesers all the way. Why not?
You're living in the past, man. You're living.
It's not. You used to be the voice of the kids, down with the youth, Tom. Used to be our interface with the new generation, and now you just,
it's all 90s retro now. You see.
And we are very honoured this week to have a guest with us. It is the captain of Team Scotland, master of Dark Elves and High Elves. It is Jock Wright, a.k.a. BB Jock. Jock, thank you so much for joining us this week. If you're going into a box of celebrations, what is your go-to pick?
Well, like Blood Bowl, I'm quite strategic when it comes to community boxes of chocolate. So I tend to opt for Snickers on the grounds that not terribly popular. No, have the backup of Bounty as well. So it's like, he's all round. So, I do like them all. But the reality is it's way too cool a kid if you want your fair share of chocolate. So that's how I approach Maltesers.
I love approaching the Christmas chocolate box tactically is something less than I maybe expected.
I need a 2+ on this box, So
Well, we're not here to talk about celebrations. No, we have a guest on, and that means one thing and one thing only, and that is it is time to go over some hot takes. We're going to be looking at 3 hot takes from Jock and seeing what he thinks about the world of Blood Bowl. Let's not waste any time. Jock, straight over to you. And what is your first hot take for us?
We kind of touched on the semi-formal, not quite an intro. High Elves are not going to be as good as people think they are. I think ultimately people have looked at them and went, ooh, claw, that's great. Which, at face value, turning dwarf armor and orc armor into AV8 sounds delightful. but they're going to be reroll suckers because it's with wrestle, and so it's not a great synergy. You go and blitz up, ready to kill them, and even if there's a TO that's been crazy enough to give you a second, you might go wild, mighty blow, but you're going to roll a 1 and 9, and then you're facing the question of, do I re-roll this because it's just a blitz, or do I hope that he doesn't get his face kicked in, having fallen to the ground on his own? And then I think the other thing that's kind of at issue there, and I've got fairly good sources, so I'm kind of okay, but with them both being sort of different types of blitzers, the question mark is are they both movement 7? Are High Elves about to lose their movement 8? I don't think they're going to, based on the rumors that I've heard. But if they did, like, what's the point at that point? I think that's one of the things as well, kind of like extending my hot take, is that James Workshop's biggest mistake with season 3 is the structural cock-up that is the roster, period. They've taken away all the flavor and sort of interesting things about, well, particularly Adge. I'm sure Scott will feel that pain. But I think, even things like humans losing their blitzers, losing their gutters is obvious. I mean, you look at Elven Union, probably the most imbecilic, useless team on the planet, where it's got sort of AV8, movement 6 linos and a couple of catchers. Like, good luck with that one, boys. So yeah, my high elf hot take is they'll be all right, but like the hype around them, because obviously there's hype on a new release, I don't think it'll bear itself.
Interesting. I think that, yeah, I'm really keen to see what the roster looks like when we kind of get the official look of it stat wise and all of that, aside from what was in kind of the preview, because I think that I looked at kind of the Team of Legend roster, and I kind of didn't really see what was necessarily so special with Elven Union being what they've become, and Elven Union not being a true Elven Union. I think we've discussed before how much fun that could be, and yeah, it's interesting to see the route they've gone to with these high elves, how they've kind of decided skill wise. Scott, I've spoken to you, I think, briefly about high elves and this new roster, and I feel like you're keen on them. What are you feeling about this?
So first of all, a couple of little caveats, but just to clarify, first of all, I'm quite looking forward to them. I'm looking forward to them because they're not meta. I'm not expecting them to go in and be a tier, they probably will be a tier 1, but I'm not expecting them to go in and be like, maybe Dark Elves have had their bit of a moment in the sun, and maybe OWA are getting that little bit of love at the moment to start third. So I think, agree with what Jock said, it's about people's expectation. I think that Claw, everybody is getting very overly excited. I mean, no offense, look at Necro. They've had 2 Claw pieces for a number of seasons now, and yeah, we all know, don't we, Tom, that armor strength 8 is it's the best armor in the world of Blood Bowl ever, really, isn't it? Can't break that for love nor money a day. So hey, what's to worry? I think that's about people's expectation. I'm going to be interested, for me, when we see the full roster, is to know exactly what is that USP versus, as we said, a bit more edge and fragility for Woodies, bit more solidity and less of a passing game with Delves. Union seem to be a bit of an afterthought, and the fact that they've chucked Fumble Ruski in out of left field for no particular reason, that'll be an interesting one to watch. So it will be interesting what happens with the movement. It's going to be very interesting to see how they pitch. Looks like they're going to be slightly more throwy, a bit more movement, maybe slightly less than Dark Elves at this stage. So all in all, interested to see what they do. I like the sculpts. They make me smile. They remind me of people who would go to PE at school and forget their shorts and have to borrow whatever was in the cupboard. Yeah, we've all got memories of that. So it's, it fits with the law. This Elven Prince has come along. He said, guys, I want my Blood Bowl team. You've still got to wear your full ceremonial battle dress. And by the way, you've got to use these funky Lycra shorts, which do look a bit random, but they make me laugh. So I
went to the school in the 80s, and it was legitimate to have to do PE in your pants. That was a definite reason not to forget your PE kit, was get your pants on.
Made us the men we are today, Jock. Absolutely.
Yeah, indeed.
Mr. Hovel, how are you feeling about High Elves?
Yeah, they're an interesting one, because I think for this season it seems to be very much pro or trying to encourage the more passing game, especially with this one, which has got obviously secure pass and cloudburster now.
If secure pass is a real thing, are we still on the fence as to whether it's real?
I'm calling bullshit on that.
Yeah, I think that's nobody read the proof. That's mine.
But I agree with the claws. Claws are just like stab. You think, oh, this is fantastic. This is the secret weapon of all secret weapons, and you don't get sent off. And then you go slash. Oh, I rolled a 7. Oh, damn! Now I'm going to get killed. So yeah, I fully agree on that side of things. But there are some very strange kind of things. That block and steady footing is kind of very similar to the Bretonians, the new Bretonians, which again, that steady footing, that's gonna be once in a blue moon that's gonna work potentially. I don't know.
I think it does interesting things, the maths. I mean, I've never bothered to work out the maths, but smart people tell me that when you put dodge on the Bretonian, but actually upgrade his edge to 2 with a blitzer, and then you've got dodge and then steady footing for all those rolls, like the cage dive suddenly gets proper sexy at that point with the numbers. I don't know what the precise numbers are, but all of a sudden a blodge steady footing blitzer going into a cage sounds completely viable in that sense. In fact, if I could pick my design, I'd have put the claws, maybe not synergistically, but claws on the dragon prince or the block piece, and I'd have put wrestle steady footing on together, because you wrestle steady footing with dodge is a lovely sack piece at that point, because you're looking for block claws to do your damage, and you're looking for wrestle dodge typically on a high elf catcher to go and get the ball, basically.
Okay.
So if I was building a squad to cause damage and go get the ball, that's how I'd build them.
So what do you think the stats are going to be on these characters? Because obviously we're assuming that Adge is 2 across the board. But you were mentioning about movement, and I'm also quite curious about because I don't know elves. I'm quite of a bit of a, orcs, necromantic, anything that bashes. So what about the armor as well? Are they the armored version of the elves?
Yeah, I think you'll see them carry on from like old season. They'll be sort of AV 9+ across the board. You might even get a sneaky surprise that the Dragon Prince comes as AV 10. That would make them brutal. I don't know. I mean, just absolute speculation. But I think you'll see Adge 2 across the board. The question is, and obviously it's only unsubstantiated rumor, the question is are they all movement 7, the blitzers, or do one set of the blitzers get movement 8? Because for me, one of the things I enjoyed about transitioning from Dark Elves to High Elves was suddenly having movement 8, having a 1-turn option that was fairly reliable. If they lose that movement 8, coupled with the fact that you'd probably typically in a NAF scenario lost your 3rd catcher or your 3rd movement 8 piece, and then all of a sudden you're as slow as a tanker. All the dwarves are keeping up with you. And I think that's one of the fundamental problems with elves per se, aside from the woodies, is that most of the elves are slow as hell. I mean, dark elves are a bit quicker with a bit more movement 7, but then they're running about with AV8 just to get themselves knocked out and killed at the same time. So I think that will be the same, and obviously the thrower will be nice, and I've got to assume they've got to have pass, because for it to be the best passer in the game, it has to have an inbuilt pass skill, and so maybe secure the pass sounds very thou shalt not pass, yeah, or thou shalt not intercept, I should say. But yeah, they've got to have pass rather than secure the pass, I would have thought.
I described Bretonians before as a team that look like rugby players who are giving football a go. Like they've got the various passing things with them, but they're kind of relatively beefy. I'm now kind of wondering, is this particular kind of elf roster, are they football players who are trying to give rugby a go? Are they kind of the other side of the Bretonian coin? With the kind of positionals and some of the skills they've given. I'm keen to, before we move on to your next take, I'm keen to ask about what you mentioned when you were talking about the High Elves and the way that GW have done their rosters, and this kind of move to a lot of the new teams that came out all have this kind of lineman, then 2-2-2 kind of setting, and they've now pretty much kind of moved because it's what in the box, like humans and Skaven and orcs and all these sort of other teams have now also moved to this 2-2-2 kind of layout. You didn't sound sold by that, and I think it's something that I did kind of have a concern about, how it kind of moves everyone a little bit closer together, because there's kind of less variety in how the team is kind of how the team is built.
Yeah, sure. I mean, before I kind of like wind up for the pitch, I should say that I look at Blood Bowl through the lens of a tournament player. I used to play league, and enjoyed the occasional league game, but I play so much tournament play, and indeed have so many commitments overseas. Like this year, I'm looking to add 11 new countries to have played Blood Bowl in, including the Vatican. Vampires in the Vatican sounds great. Yeah, so my comments come through the sort of the lens of what it means for a hardened tournament player who's at the competitive end of the spectrum. I'm captain of the Scotland team. I go to Euro Bowl. I go to win. And obviously we have fun. I mean, that's one of the things that I think a lot of people misunderstand about top class players, is that they do have fun as well. Winning is fun in that sense. But in terms of the rosters itself, I think it's probably not an original line, but I'm sure you probably heard it. It's become lineable, and you've not got enough positionals to kind of like give out the flavor and the character. If you look at Dark Elves, a race I played, those 4 Blodge Blitzers allowed you to harry and harass positions and sort of try and make stuff happen. You would cut corners and hope that the 1 in 36 didn't happen, because you weren't necessarily quick enough to get away. So you kind of have to make these moves, both sort of defensively being aggressive. But with this change in roster, if I look at it through the Elves and maybe even the Rats for that matter, you suddenly have to play a lot more passive and a lot more within yourself. And actually, I think intrinsically, the game's heading towards, without being pessimistic about it, but a more boring state of Blood Bowl, because you don't have the tools to have fun. That's what I mean, that's why I play Elves, because I like the fun of sorting out the puzzle, putting the jigsaw pieces in the right place, hitting the button when I need to, pulling back when I need to. The reality is you just don't have the resources to go hard, because with 2 Blitzers, 2 Assassins, and 2 Witches, you're not going to want to expose 4 of them, particularly when you've got a mighty blow tackle environment running about. And if we think that OWA is going to be the new top of the power curve, they're going to be running about with a mighty blow tackle to make your life miserable. So you don't even have like that AV9 Blodge piece to sort of say, well, I'll take it, risk it for a biscuit, because you're not going to want to put a Witch out there, and you're not going to want to put an Assassin out there. So I think the change in the structure and the philosophy to rosters per se just means that it's homogenized and a little bit more dull, a little bit more passive Blood Bowl. And why else would you play Resurrection Tournament Blood Bowl if not to have wicked fun and have a crack at it and get the ball?
It'll be interesting if we see if new teams come over the next year or so, whether you look at Necromantic Horror. I think you got 14 positionals in the box for Necromantic Horror rather than 12. There's been a few where you get 14. Be interesting to see if we get a few 14 teams that maybe don't stick to this 2-2-2 format. Maybe you've got a 4-2-2 in there or something. The kind of rosters that people enjoyed before they changed them, but in new boxes, so that they kind of fit this new brief of everything in the box. But let's move on to take number 2 then. It's very good that the podcast immediately after the High Elf release starts talking about High Elves. So that's good for the algorithm. Thank you. So what is your second hot take?
Yeah, no, to be fair, I was kind of like, elite skills. I know that's probably been done. And I've been enjoying watching and catching up over the shows. I love the format. So my hot take number 2, and it's of the moment right now, is that the Euro Bowl rule set version 2 has been released. And if you were around anywhere on the internet last year, you would have noticed that when Hungary released their rule set, it blew up the internet. There was lots of complaints, people threatening to boycott Euro Bowl. It's not been quite as vociferous this time, but certainly as I chat to people in quiet corners about what they think, there's still a bit of grumbling. And contextually, I for my sins, I also sit on the Euro Bowl committee. So I actually liaise directly with the rules writers and the org team. So I've got a privileged position to say, psst, not that, this. But my hot take is, whilst people worry about the Polish rule set, I think it's going to be fine, and arguably it's going to be better than Hungary's rule set. They've got a nice little flowing gold mechanism, which allows races to push gold, either extra gold to the team or to the skills as they need. Obviously, I'm not a fan of elite skills per se, but we'll not get into that one. I'm sure you've done that one to death already. But yeah, it's going to be a good rule set. If they give Wood Elves 30k more. There you go. There's my plea publicly. Give them 30k more.
Yeah. You need to come down to the Ipswich Classic in April that Mr. Coe is running. We've got a budget of Woodies of 1.2 million. Happy days.
Oh God. Can I have 3 trees?
I am spoiling you, Scott. I am.
You are, I know. Anyway, so before I go, just a quick one, Jock. Here, you mentioned then obviously some of the grumblings. Have the grumblings been about anything specific, or is it the fact that no matter what tournament you run or you're engaged in, you can't please everybody all of the time? So is that just a natural background noise, or is it something specific that's come out?
I think it's probably trend of rule sets for Eurobowl. The last few, or particularly Hungary, maybe not so much Athens, but it was complicated by the blessings. I think a lot of people have dubbed the moniker of Eurobowl as Poverty Bowl. I don't know if you've heard that in your neck of the woods, but I hear Poverty Bowl as a word going around. And I also have a kind of vested interest as well, because amongst all my many titles that you missed at the top of the show, I'm also TO for the Home Nations, which is going to be the largest tournament in the UK next year, which is pretty spectacular, but it's completely driven off the Eurobowl rule set. So I have a personal interest, because last year with Hungary, I had people going, "Oh, I'm not coming if you're using the Eurobowl rules," and some people did actually sell their tickets on because they didn't want to play, which is fair enough. So I think it's the general sense of there's just not enough gold. I think mainland European Blood Bowl operates at slightly lower costs. Then you compound that with the fact that you've got new rosters that don't cost as much. So you go from the standard expectation of 1150 gold as kind of the baseline, and we've got it down to 1060 for tier 1. And it's like, what? 90k less? I mean, in some cases, it really does affect. I mean, I think Woodies are the ones that are most knackered by it, and certainly the chief rules writer has said, well, we think they're very good, they're top of the win rate curve, we need to do something to mitigate against that. But I think the challenge with that is, if you just take that little bit away from them and you've got to pick 8 races in the Eurobowl or 4 races in the Euro Open, you've reached the valid conclusion, in my view, that you don't take Wood Elves, because they don't have the tools in the box to be Wood Elves in that sense. So so there's a general sense of Oliver Twist, please give me more, even if it is gruel, in that sense. But I think the flow in gold is a really nice mechanism that, if you actually get stuck into building rosters, and I've done several hours of roster building to be able to feed back to the org team, it actually is quite a neat solution. So yeah, my hot take is you're going to be fine with a Polish rule set, unless you're a Woodies coach.
Go, Tom.
Sorry to interrupt. It's an interesting one, because I'm just quickly looking at the updated rules, but the thing that catches my eye is actually the tiers. And the one that jumps out at me is tier 5, with your Black Orcs, Goblins, Khorne, Snotlings, but also Bretonnians are in there. And it's an interesting one that Bretonnians are perceived as kind of less than Tomb Kings, who are actually in tier 4. So that was quite interesting, considering that, I've seen in league play, as I'm seeing people start to leagues in the latest sets, all going for the Bretonnians and leave it, not even clipping out the Tomb Kings out of the blister packs. So it's quite interesting to see that.
I think they're fairly
French people, or I don't know.
Well, it's nothing to do with me. I don't write the rules. I just kind of give my thoughts on it in a private sense. But I think, I mean, obviously yet to be proven out, but I think Berts suffer. It's not an amazing roster. I think in tier 5 you can build to your heart's content either a Zug Berts build with 2 rerolls and an apple and a leader, or if you want to get a bit rowdy, you can go Scrog Berts with 2 rerolls but no leader plus your apple. and obviously hope to pump up the crowd in Warsaw to get that extra reroll. So interestingly, it was yesterday. There was a blog on Fumble. A Eurobowl coach or a coach planning to attend Euro Open wrote a blog on Fumble, and one of his recurring themes and requests throughout this blog was, oh, maybe if you just move them up one tier. And he said that for about 3, 4, 5 races. And I replied, I was like, thanks for the thoughts, but to me, the conclusion is give them some more gold. Because if you look at the roster tier, and I get why the 3 are in tier 1 as Amazons, OWA, and Woodies.
Yeah.
But if you look at it, it's back end heavy down to 4 and 5, because they're needing the stuff to make them viable rosters. So, like, if you've got a request saying, "Can you just move them one more tier?" then just give them a little bit more gold, and then we don't have to do anything.
And also, just very quickly, what's the deal currently with banning the bombers? So both Dribblesnot and Cindy are both banned, and I've seen it on a number of other tournaments this year. What is the kind of trend for that?
Oh, I confess I paid zero attention to that, because I built about 4 hours of rostering, and then I got to the stunties and I thought, it's 1 o'clock in the morning. I wanted to turn this around so that the org team can have my thoughts, so that they can then release publicly their version, having reflected on what I and others have said. And I thought, oh, screw that. I don't give a shit about halflings. So I confess. Yeah, so I don't know what the rationale is behind it. But then obviously, if you look at the old 2020 season rules, they were always kind of considered mega stars. I mean, that's a different question, right? Are Bomber and Cindy now unmega starred because they cost a little bit more? Probably not, but Flings have been kicked in the knackers in this new rule set. Goblins probably not so much. They look, of the stunty races alongside Snots, they look not too bad. And I think it's the tree side, the Flings and the gnomes that have been. I think Darth Vader was in charge of writing the rule set. He went for the dark side.
I have a question about rule sets generally. I'm interested what you kind of think, because I had a conversation with someone a couple of weeks ago about tournament rule sets in general, and how I think more and more tournament rule sets take maybe kind of more thoughts around there being maybe different tierings or different ways that that is worked out. Obviously, you've got this example where kind of you've got gold and a trade-off there. You've got the matrix that's bouncing around for ways to do it as well. Do you think that we will settle on do you think that these tournaments with these more intricate rule sets are going to kind of become a little bit drawing in very much the kind of more elite side of the game and kind of players? Because are we getting a little bit complicated, kind of maybe less simple to build just a team and turn up?
Yeah, cool. Well, yeah, that's a nice question to dig into. Before I kind of dig into that, I think one thing that we're all guilty of when people sort of like talk about a rule set and they sort of dive in, and they're, whether they're a fling coach that wants fun and mayhem and chaos, or you've got your super serious elf coach like me, although I'm not typically that serious in that sense. I think one of the things that's forgotten and lost before that conversation starts is, what is the TO trying to do? Because obviously tournaments have different ranges. Now you've kind of got, your top end Eurobowl, which is probably arguably the most competitive tournament in the world, in the sense of you're getting the best players from each nation to go and compete and declare the best nation. That sounds pretty rock hard competitive. You then got places like NAFC, which, again, a lot of, I used to call NAFC the Wimbledon of Blood Bowl along the lines of the majors, but I thought about it, and it's actually, NAFC is more like the London Marathon. You've got the elite runners at the front of the hall chasing the glory of the title, and then you've got like Muggins back there that turns up for his one day, and he's there for a fun run.
Just as a toaster at the back, yeah.
And he's playing Black Orcs with, fungus and God knows what else he's managed to sort of whip out the rule set. So I think it's important to look at, when you come to a tournament, and it's very much for the TO to determine, is what is this tournament about? You've got heritage tournaments like Water Bowl has been around for 20 plus years. Again, a very strong field that goes there to compete. Quite a flat structure. I mean, arguably you could be, maybe it's too flat in this rule set. So it's about context of the tournament first and foremost. But I think the reality is that you are going to see more complex tiering structures. I think the idea of flat tiering of all the same gold and all the same skills across 4, 5, 6 bands, however many you want, does not address the issue. I mean, you take lean on Poland, for example. You've got OWA, Amazons, and Woodies in tier 1, all at 1060, all at 120 skills, and 10k extra to spend where they like. Now, as we might expect, Amazons just like, paha! You could give me no gold and I will turn up with a team. And then you've got Woodies who are kind of like, please, sir, like, I want to play with a tree. And so, like, if you have that kind of flat tiering approach, there are sharp edges in this rule set, in the costings that have been decided by James Workshop. And I don't know the internal machinations, but I imagine that they're not particularly fussed about the tournament scene. In that sense, I imagine they build for casual players, league players. You know, that's where the bulk of the games get played. Obviously, we don't record the activity, but I imagine there's far more across the world casual league games than there are tournament games, I would guess. So I think you do have to look at something a bit more structured. And when we talk about complexity, I don't think the matrix approach is actually that complex, because you are talking about a grid that sort of says this much gold and this much skills. And depending on how you obviously want to represent the skills, whether it's skill points or gold and so on and so forth, I think that's visually very, very easy to get a handle on. Oh, there's Amazons in this box. It gets 1100 gold and 6 skills. Bosh. There's Nurgle. They're getting 1150 and 8 skills. Bosh. I think that's easy. So I think that will become a prevalent solution. I also think it might take time to catch up, because I think there's a lot more thought gone into it. Is the Poland flowing gold? I really love it. It's a really elegant solution, because you look at the flat tiers at face value and you think, this is never going to work. And then you go through it all and you go, oh, Nurgle and such are on the same tier, and Nurgle used that to buy skills, and this team uses that to buy positionals, and it just works really well. So, like, a proper hat tip to the Polish org team. So I think in answer to your question, it's going to have to get more, not complex, but more sophisticated, more elegant, if you will, rather than a brute flat tiering.
I think you're right with the rule book. When you read through the bits about match play and the bits about league play and stuff, it does feel like there is kind of a lot more around how you can go about a league compared to kind of what is expected of a tournament. The match play rules, I think the Ipswich Classic in a couple of weeks is closely following match play rules with a hint of Kent Team Championship kind of in there to make the tierings not like make a little bit more sense and make the skills that you're given a little bit more sense as well. But yeah, doing a league fresh out of the book feels kind of uncomplicated, and doing a tournament fresh out of the book, you do look and go, there are a few things here that I will need to change and consider.
Is this a good time to confess that I've not read the rule book?
Do you need
how many easy answers to that? Sorry, Chris. Is an easy answer to that is just say Jock on a D6. How many sides are there?
5 at least.
Congratulations, you're within 15% of being a Blood Bowl coach. Well done. Just while we're talking about that, you've obviously your TO for the home nations, as you mentioned. You've done a lot of tournaments. You've been to a lot of tournaments, whether in the UK, international, which is fantastic. When you look at the success of a tournament, what are some of the examples that you could share with us and maybe some of the other people and the audience listening, both of them? What makes the difference for you between a good tournament and a great tournament? What are those fine margins that mean that great tournament has that little bit more sticks in the memory, good sign of success?
Yeah, sure. That's a great question. It's a fun one as well. So for me, a good tournament, like when I go to a tournament, let's say in my backyard in the UK somewhere, what I consider good is I get to play 6 fun games. Although arguably, depending on the field size, I'd really love a 5-game tournament. But it seems not fashionable to want to get home for a Sunday dinner. But But I'm looking for ideally a rule set that allows people to play what they like, rather than being funneled into, if I'm going to try and compete, like for example, the Welsh, 45% of the races of 100 coaches was 4 races. And that for me doesn't strike me as okay, so I'm going to bounce into 2 OWAs, probably a couple of undeads and Amazons and whatever. Like, so for me, I want to play 6 different races to have that sort of breadth of experience. So I want a rule pack that's kind of delivering that ultimately. I also, and it's kind of like bleeds into elite skills, and I'm not going to get onto that because you will get me on a hobby horse that will not be entertaining. But like when you used to have old 2020 tournaments that be like, oh, no more than X copies of Y skill, and you're like, well, lizards are dead, elves are pretty screwed without dodge, dwarves without guard. We're about to find out what that looks like in 2025. And so I immediately avoided them because, again, that was that funneling down into what was viable. So that for me is like the prerequisite for a good tournament. And I've been to different tournaments that are run rigidly and well and super organized and run to time. I was in Bloodbowl in Cork last year, which is happening this weekend, where I was playing Bloodbowl to 10 o'clock on a Saturday night because there was no calendar, but we were in a hurling club and drinking Guinness, and just like, it was fun, it was wild. But I think that for me, what turns a good tournament into a great tournament is the bits outside of the Blood Bowl game itself. And maybe that's a bit unfair on kind of your Joe average local tournament that happens all over the world, but I went to a lot of tournaments last year where I visited, and actually, perhaps because the motivation was the visit and not necessarily the Blood Bowl, there was lots of good examples. So a couple I pull out of my ear, and Hargren can send me the check in the post, is Pier Bowl, Copenhagen, pairs in the summer, right on the sea, just on the edge of the city. It's a beautiful city. He does well to look after you. Fantastic. Go have a great time in Copenhagen and play some funny Blood Bowl where you actually get given star player points to take stars. So I managed to rope K-Fog, who is obviously Danish by blood, into going back to his homeland. And I thought, hey, K-Fog's my partner. I can just sit here, draw, and we'll win the tournament. But he decided, and it was a good idea at the time, and it definitely was a good idea, that we both would take Swift Twins. So I took High Elf Swift Twins, and he took Union Swift Twins because we could do that. Got 18 SP. But obviously gold was a problem. So it meant he turned up with 2 Bloodstep Guard Blitzers and no other skills anywhere else. He's like, hey, when other am I going to get the Swift Twins? 2 Bloodstep Guard. Obviously the build was unstable. He lost. But I mean, that's another thing. But the event was fantastic. Friday night, international coaches had dinner. The big one I'd really put on people's radar is Bobali in Bloodbowl. It celebrated its 20th anniversary last year. I've been the last 2 years in a row. And literally outside of the World Cup and Euro Bowl, it is the tournament that you should go to for an experience, because you turn up on the Friday, or it was a Thursday night last year, because it was 3 days of Blood Bowl. Thursday night, you meet up in the old town. Everybody kind of swamps in from all over Spain and all over Europe, kind of come in there, and you drink in the street and have a good time and meet everybody. It's fantastic. Turn up to the Blood Bowl. And then on the Friday night this year with the celebration, they had a live gig event after the first day, so people turned up for a live gig and stuff like that, and it was awesome. And then Saturday night, for those that are kind of traveling for the first time, or people that just love the idea, they put on official dinners where you can go and taste traditional Bloodbowl food. The only trouble for me was it was quite late, so I was eating, for my starter, sausages and black pudding at about midnight, followed by a giant entrecôte shared by the table. And it was just, and then Sunday you finish early because it's kind of like they have a 4-2 split in the continent, because you can obviously get dinner later on the continent. So they go for the 4 and the 2 to help people get home. So on the Sunday I went and saw the Atletico Bloodbowl Stadium tour. It was the first one I'd ever done, and that was really cool. And I saw Guggenheim on the day before the tournament as well. So that's one for me. So I think there are loads out there that are looking to provide you an experience beyond the idea of rolling dice for 2 days. And these are the ones that are worth traveling for, in the same vein that Euro Bowl and Euro Open by extension and the World Cup obviously happening next year in Malta are real sort of like eye openers and real sort of joy givers. I mean, ultimately, the explosion of my Blood Bowl happened because I went to Alicante. I started playing Blood Bowl on Blood Bowl 2, and a couple of my guys on my league online were like, let's go to the World Cup. So we had 2 teams with coaches from as far west as Canada and as far east as Greece meeting in Alicante. And some of us had never met in person before. And that was such a spark to my Blood Bowl. And so then I read a blog from Stimmy, the NAF tournament director, about the records 25 countries. So I'm now chasing this little project of mine, 27 by 27. So I'm trying to play Blood Bowl in 27 countries by the end of 2027. So yeah, ask people that travel, because there is a core group of coaches that travel and they see and understand the really cool stuff. So that, for me, that's a great tournament, is the stories you come away with, not, oh God, I rolled a 3 instead of a 4, shoot me now.
I think you've got some generally very good advice there for people running and people attending tournaments, in that know what you're putting on and kind of know what you want to go and do, and know what to expect when you get there. And ticking all 3 of those boxes, you're pretty much always going to go and have a really fun time at a tournament, and get lots out of it. So I could ask you so much about your various tournaments and various places you've gone, but I should probably get you onto your third hot take. So what is hot take number 3?
Yeah, I didn't warn you. I talk for Scotland as well. Yeah, forgive me if I blow the run time on this episode. It's an hour and a half special. So my hot take number 3 is that kind of progressively getting bigger in subject matter, I guess, is I think that the NAF needs to grow beyond what it has been. It has done lots of good things over the last 20 odd years. The volunteers who obviously are on the committee, the NAF reps that mule dice to the ends of the earth and will, show people how to upload into the database, or just be around and chat to new TOs and looking for advice and guidance. Often you'll hear the accusation of, well, what is NAF for? And kind of the retort is, well, they record the games. But I think the NAF is so much more than that, and can definitely grow on that. Ultimately, the NAF is what has formed the community. It's formed the idea that I want to go and play a NAF tournament in Nepal with the highest league in Blood Bowl, which is in Kathmandu. And I've been to Nepal before, so I'd like to go back and play a one-day tournament in Nepal. But without the idea of the NAF and things like that, I think that idea of kind of bringing the community together beyond the end of your street and your scout hut is a lot more difficult to achieve. And of course, the game and the community has grown massively, excitedly. And I think Alicante, again, I kind of hark back to the World Cup, just the last one, I think was a real stimulus. If you look at kind of player numbers in the NAF, I think Spain were on about 900 odds, just below 1,000. They're now sort of 1,500, 1,600. Same with England, was just below 1,000. They're now touching 1,600. So there's real growth in the game. And that comes with more tournaments, bigger tournaments. If you look at the Euro Bowl that happened in Budapest, just gone, we had 800 coaches there. Now, back in the day, Euro Bowl was a big tournament at 200, but it's now 800. There's now talk of Warsaw aiming for 850, but planning for 950 if they get the interest. And obviously, one of my other titles that you failed to mention is I'm also the Euro Bowl host for Glasgow 2028, and we have got a plan for 1,000 coaches to stretch to 1,250, and all of that's fantastic. But it comes with a risk. And I think this is where NAF needs to grow into, is this idea that the NAF is not just the record keeper of all our games, as important and fun that is to look up NAF coaches before you play them and wait to see what their doom is. Does anybody else do that? I do. I kind of sneak off to the loo and look you up and go, oh, he's rubbish.
Oh, sorry. I thought I was here for fun.
No, I told you I'm a sweaty tryhard. But I think, like, risk is increasing, and certainly in the likes of Eurobowl and the World Cup. I mean, World Cup tickets will be on sale at some point this year for 2027. I know Janu, who's kind of the lead chap there. He's hosted me. I should shout him out, actually. So other than the World Cup, Bloodbowl on the Rock in June, early June in Malta, fantastic tournament, and they've got a great one in November. They're brilliant hosts, and they really do that well. So I've got every confidence that they're going to deliver a fantastic World Cup. But that's not a guarantee that every volunteer group that steps forward is able to do that or can foresee all the problems that might come. So I think it's incumbent on the organization itself to professionalize itself a little bit. And professionalize could be misinterpreted, but what I mean is basically just having the structures in place that TOs can lean on. I mean, even like Home Nations, obviously, it's not anywhere near the size of a Eurobowl or a World Cup, but we're talking about 344 coaches next year. That's massive, you know, in Blood Bowl terms, because I don't know if you saw it recently, but Stu Backer released the top 10 list of, or top 20 list of tournament by attendance in the UK. And there was only something like 6 or 7 or 8 tournaments that were above 100, which I was surprised at. I thought, oh, we must have bigger tournaments than that. But then that said, everything's kind of growing and shuffling up as I see it. Yeah. So I think the NAF has got a stage of evolution to go, if you will, in terms of where we think it could go.
From my perspective there, sorry, Jock. First of all, I hadn't mentioned Eurobowl Glasgow 2028 purely because I didn't want to upset the Lithuania listener. You know, so, but on that point as well, where you say NAF, yeah, NAF needs a strong voice. I think what we found, I know we sort of poked the bear talking about bloody frogs, which has been very entertaining. I think, though, you know, NAF does an incredibly important role. And I know people talk about the legacy of how it's sustained against the dark ignorance of GW. But as GW are now getting behind Blood Bowl and realizing for very little investment, they're getting a good return on their money. We do need, you know, a strong NAF. We do need that impartiality to GW to have that visibility and maybe a bit of accountability within the rule set and structure. But to your point as well, the key thing I've written down there is sustainability. You know, yeah, it's growing it, but at a realistic rate, which is great. Why, you know, so all the thing that you're looking to do in terms of growing the whole Blood Bowl scene in Scotland. We spoke with, you know, Chris last week in terms of them doing it through the community program in England, etc. So for me, it's about really making sure we've got a good core foundation, and that's what we need to maintain on. Chris Coe, you're looking very pensive there, which means you're ready to about say something very prophetic and insightful. Or maybe slightly less so.
I think that the bit that I think is quite interesting when you get into conversations about NAF and what they do and why they do it and anything like that is I will admit to being a Blood Bowl coach who has only ever known a world of Blood Bowl which GW has supported in quite a good way. You know, I started playing 2022-ish, so I've only ever known a game that GW have been quite behind, and I know that there's a lot of people who have known Blood Bowl as a game that GW weren't behind and that NAF kept going. How do you kind of see, do you think there is any necessity for sort of NAF and GW to work together in any respect, or do you think that separation is needed kind of going forward? How do you kind of see that relationship between the two organizations?
Yeah, I think that's really important. I think actually there should be a relationship between the two. Like here you've got this player body that has democratic structures and elects people, and then maybe fires them. But goddamn the Berts. Bring back the Bert pastries. What an invention. But I think, you know, the NAF are doing something very clear in terms of like they're building and sustaining a community. And I think to Scott's point, sustainability is a brilliant word. That's exactly what we want, right? We don't want this thing to go so big that it kind of falls over, because you mentioned Dawnburn to some people and it predates me, and sort of like they get PTSD flashbacks of waiting in 8-hour queues for loom bands in that sort of stuff.
Don't mention loom bands in front of Scott. Don't mention loom bands in front of Scott. That's a trigger.
All that therapy at the door.
Are you one of the Dawnburn survivors, or are you, Scott?
He just hates loom bands.
Loom bands, just no. Anyway. It's not about me, but it's about the therapy, and that's what's important. It works. Sorry, we'll put those down.
I mean, obviously, like Games Workshop are the keepers of the game. It's their IP. They obviously have started to, for a long time, put work back into and obviously released a new season, commissioned Cyanide to make Blood Bowl 3, and now Warhammer Blood Bowl that's due for release. And so they're basically kind of, they're a Venn diagram, if you will. Like there's definitely crossover in the middle there. And to say that there isn't or there shouldn't be is kind of, I think a false economy, if you will. I mean, if you look at the very, very secret playtesters club, I know a few of them, and obviously will not name them, but they are very big in NAF as well. So like by dint of their, like they've been around the game a long time and they've been the playtesters and they've been involved in NAF. Like there's already that kind of informal sort of relationship there and sort of conversations going on with key people within our community. And I think that would be a positive thing if there was kind of a formal recognition of working together. I mean, for example, Malta World Cup, bizarrely the biggest Blood Bowl event in the world ever is going to be, because it's going to be bigger than Alicante, and Games Workshop won't be there. That's nuts. We should have a conversation.
It's kind of weird because it's like you kind of think of it a little bit like rugby league and rugby union. They're both the same game, but just slightly different. You've got
no, they're not. That's a crap comment. That's
you've triggered him.
What?
You've triggered him.
That's like saying cricket has a ball. Oh, look, association football has a ball. Same games.
Not at all.
Come on.
You talk about cricket, you talk about 50-50 or test. They're the same. You're using the same base of things, i.e. the same figures, same races, but then you're using them in different varieties. So tournaments have lots of different types of tournaments. You have different varieties, different things like that. That's where I was coming from on that side of things. I'll defend myself on that side. But it's really interesting that there is this real quite intense debate about where the NAF sits compared to Games Workshop, because obviously Games Workshop owns the IP of all the figures, hence why we had that fun little debate about Slan. But then you've also, like you say, where the NAF has been continually bringing this game to the masses, keeping all these stats, keeping all the tournaments going. And also it's where most people who used to be back in the day and doing all the leagues and stuff used to work with. So it's an interesting one. And like you pointed out, that the World Cup doesn't have the people who are the initial producers of the product there.
Yeah. I mean, it's an interesting one. I think whether the tournament organizers themselves would want Games Workshop there, depending on their requirements, it might be a sort of poison chalice, so to speak. But I do think that there ought to be a kind of an opening of a conversation.
I think for me, the last thing I'll just say on that, I think for me, the NAF, it's very much the opportunity for NAF to have its hand on the tiller of Blood Bowl as it goes forward. Because my concern, if you had something impartial, something like NAF, and I know Chris said I'm in a similar vein. I've only ever known it with Blood Bowl support, but my concern is coming from a 40k background that Blood Bowl ends up a complete meta mess, an overkill of that you see with 40k. Now there's going to be 40k fans who disagree with me on that one, but that's the concern. Then it just gets short-term re-release. Here's the latest FAQ, then there's the next FAQ, and then all of a sudden it's like, have I got the latest PDF, have I got the latest info? And then it's, as we've talked about on this cast before, then it's about who knows the law or the rules. The more detailed rules, the better. That's more of the game rather than it's a dice game, enjoy it, shake hands.
Indeed. And again, that probably points a little bit to NAF's recent errata release, knowing that Games Workshop's not going to release until May. And actually, let's be honest, it's an absolute mess. They didn't hire a proper content writer to write this thing in a way that was intelligible. And the NAF has had to make some sensible decisions. Whether you agree with what the detail of their content and their rulings and clarifications, I think it's important that they've been able to do that actually TOs can kind of have a level of consistency, that coaches can go to a tournament and go, well, this is a NAF tournament and this is how this thing's going to be dealt with. And I'm sure if Games Workshop come out and do the complete opposite, then obviously NAF at that point will just fold into line with that and say, well, that's the clarification now. But I think the fact that NAF as a membership body has been able to do that in the short term, it is an obvious win for the game and the community.
I think it's good that I think having so many discussions about sort of, who's more important, who does what, all of this stuff. I think it does, in a roundabout way, kind of show that the game is in a really good position, because it's now you've now got almost two bodies that different people who play Blood Bowl sort of, maybe you've got a preference over one or another, or maybe you like both or whatever. But the fact that we've got two big supportive organizations behind the game shows that it's kind of in quite a good place.
I'd kind of push back on that a little bit, because I don't think support of the games, it means different things. Like the NAF, I would argue, is content and sort of in the wheelhouse of building a community, supporting a community, recording the activity, helping TOs build opportunities for coaches to play. Games Workshop are selling models. That's a different game of fish. I mean, obviously they put the rule book out for elite matches, but they ultimately don't concern themselves with what happens on in the community. They concern themselves with, I've released this game, it's sold X amount of units, and people keep buying my models and paints. In a totally sort of brutal, strip it back. They're not building a community, and they don't really. I mean, they have obviously the occasional tournament in Warhammer World, and I'm sure they release content, but it sounds cruel. They don't care, but to the same extent as NAF. What their care is around is this game playable, enjoyable, and do people want to buy it? There's a different motivation there. And I'm not saying that that's a wrong motivation, because obviously if that motivation didn't exist, we wouldn't have the game. But I don't think it's two communities. I think you've got the NAF, which is a community, and then you've got Games Workshop, the guys that provide the magic in the game itself. And actually the community of NAF is the other bit of magic. It's two bits of magic that go hand in glove.
I think that's a good point. I think we had someone in our league Discord who said something similar along the lines of kind of using the word support is the challenge, because it's in what way do you mean it, and it's you're right, the community aspect and the people who are playing it, and then the people who are facilitating that are doing more for kind of in what you would probably class as support. Either way, I'm happy. I'm good. I'm glad that the game is where it is. I think that's a good thing. I feel like we need to probably throw some quickfire questions your way now, Jock. And for this, I'm going to pass over to none other than Mr. Scott Bryan.
Cool. Okay, this is the part of the podcast when we have hot takes on then, Jock, where this is what people, they either love to hate it or they hate to love it. This is about gauging your true level of Blood Bowl coaching and your Blood Bowl persona. Are you a Blood Bowl hero, a pillar of the community, or are you simple? Are you just that guy? So what we're going to do is we're going to do 10 fire random questions straight at you. At the end of those 10 questions in supposed to be 30 seconds, but these things vary depending on which way the wind is blowing and if my teeth are stuck in properly this evening as well. But at the end of that, then it will go to a nominal arbitrary scorecard presented by our head of ethics here at New Dice Please, Mr. Chris Coe, and then we'll see how you stack up on the leaderboard, and we'll go from there basically to rate you as a level of Blood Bowl individual. So without further ado, BB Jock, are you ready?
Oh, I feel like I need to put a Kevlar vest on now.
Feel free. If you want any more pressure, just to let you know, top of the leaderboard, Chris Blunt and Dan D for Dan Atherton. So this
where on the leaderboard? I think the more pressure is where on the leaderboard is is Liam, current captain of Team.
Yeah, where's the England captain hanging out? Because if we can get above the England captain,
Liam is, shall we say, yeah. He's near the relegation zone. He's bottom, basically.
Oh, so what you're saying is the pressure is off. I just don't have to make an absolute balls of this.
You never know. This is what it's like. It's a dice game. We never know what Nuffle's blessings are going to rain down upon us. Anyway,
if Nuffle has anything to say with it, I'll score a double one for sure.
You'll need to speak to Mr. Hovell about that. He's our resident one expert. I'll let you, Chris, edit in some suitably dramatic elevator music at this stage.
Yep, that'll all be there.
Lovely. Excellent. Okay, so Jock, here we go. 10 questions. Question number 1, block or dodge?
Dodge.
Question number 2, biggest dislike in season 3 so far?
Roster positionals.
Okay, question number 3, best green stunty team, Gobbos or Snotlings?
Gobbles.
Question number 4, praise to Nuffle, should you include them in your season 3 league?
If you want coaches to leave, yes.
Okay, question number 5, sexiest Blood Bowl sculpt is?
Oh God, I don't do the hobby shit. I don't pay Buzz Pass. Mastermind.
Okay. Question number 6, best rats, Skaven or Underworld?
Skaven, obviously.
Okay, question number 7, race you want to avoid playing in season 3 is?
OWA.
Okay, question number 8, best international Blood Bowl team, England or France?
France.
Question number 9. Question number 9, Slan, praise be to the NAF or time to bounce on?
Forget about it.
Cool. Beautiful. And question number 10, start, start, finish. There'll be special effects and all that good stuff in here. Question number 10, the most romantic Blood Bowl gift to share, matching Blood Bowl dice with both your names on or a new Blood Bowl pitch with both your pictures on?
Oh, it's got to be the hot picture love on the pitch.
Beautiful, beautiful. And while we just go to that, and that all those will go across in some sort of nominal, subjective way to Mr. Chris Coe for marking and feedback on the score. We always ask this, or we start to ask this: which Blood Bowl coach currently has you on toast? So, who is the Blood Bowl coach you turn up against, and for whatever reason, no matter what race they play, how many players they've got, you cannot beat them for love nor money?
Oh God, not many. Honestly, I mean, I've got a record of 0-1 with K-Fog. I'd have to say K-Fog because obviously he's one of the world's best players. But yeah, there's nobody that's got me on toast. I'll give anybody a game.
That's fair enough.
I do have
Hovel yet.
I've got your NAF ranking up, and there's the regular rivals section, and there is no one on that regular rivals one that's kind of got a clear advantage over you. So I was interested to see what you were going to say there, because I was looking through it and I was like, yeah, it's probably K-Fogs, and that's it, because that's the only one. That's the only one with no wins, but also losses. So
yeah, so Thulian and I are even Stevens on our
202.
I'm 0-3-0 with Andy Davo because he keeps dicing the hell out of me. That should at least be 2-1-0, if not 3-0-0. And then that's pretty much it. And then Core, if I was to have a sort of favorite player in the world to play against, Core, without shadow of a doubt. K-Fog is the funnest guy in the world to play Blood Bowl with, shadow of a doubt.
Excellent. Okay, so if we now go, after all that excitement, over to our ethics committee lead here at New Dive Police, Chris Coe. Good evening, Christopher. What's the scores and the doors for Jock then?
It was 8.5.
Ooh, is that good?
8.5. That puts you joint third with Alistair Pring and Stu Backer.
Have I given half points before?
You have.
Oh, I didn't know if I had.
I've got a full list, which if you do want, just out of in the impartial world in which we now find ourselves wading through for that one, Jock, if you do want to know your scores and your results, if you go online, fill in a form somewhere in triplicate, send it to us. We may ever not look or get round to it or whatever. But yeah, thank you very much for participating this evening. When we do see you next in person, there will be some New Dice Please merch with your name on it as well to look forward to as well.
Oh, amazing. I don't know if you're being serious or not, but that'd be cool.
Yeah, when we see you, we will see you, and we will make sure everything is good. We'll get an address for you and ship you some stuff over. Yeah,
it's nice. It's nice to see I landed at 8.5 with Alistair Pring Wobert. He's my co-TO at Home Nations, so he keeps me sane, or kind of reels me in when I go a bit too crazy, and because he's the sensible one of the pairing.
Well, I mean, like you've mentioned, there were so many kind of titles and things within the world of Blood Bowl that I completely missed off. The list is kind of endless. What are you, before we kind of round up, what are you looking at over the kind of, we're in January, over 2026? What's kind of on your hit list? What are you looking to do? What's your kind of priorities for this year?
Yeah, good question. I mean, I've got a to-do list. I've actually written it out for Blood Bowl because it's bloody long. But I think probably top of the list is Euro Bowl 2028. We're currently venue shopping and budget writing and stuff like that because, you know, it gets complicated when you're sort of north of 1,000 people. So that's kind of high on the list. And then, you know, let's have a New Dice Please world exclusive. I'm looking at running for NAF president when the elections happen at some point this year. I'd like to.
That was such an exclusive that Tom vanished off the.
Yeah, he's had to wait around that world exclusive.
My camera hasn't officially failed. Yes.
Yeah.
We can still hear you though. So that's okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Was that your was that your NDA kicking in there, Tom?
Yeah. No, I can't get it to work. Anyway, no.
So presidential run then.
Yeah, hopefully. I'd love to give it a crack. I've got some, obviously talked about NAF and I've been thinking about it. And interestingly, it was actually a lot of, in my travels across Europe, a lot of coaches approached me and said, hey, you should be the next NAF president. And I hadn't even thought about it. But it wasn't until I got repeated coaches that were respected within their communities approach me. I was like, hang on a minute. And then start to have conversations with some people. And it's like, oh, yeah, I've got some ideas about where we can go. I think the NAF's at an exciting juncture at the moment. Obviously, we had this Shirokov stuff happen, and that's actually a really important point to reflect and move on from. But it needs to be done well and carefully, ultimately. So, yeah, I think I'm keen to give it a crack.
Well, good luck to you, Jock. Good luck to you.
Thank you very much.
I think if there's nothing else to kind of take, even just from today, it's you do want someone in. You know, you do feel like you need someone in that role with a kind of passion and experience for the game, and not necessarily just a passionate experience for the game in the UK, or you know, you need more than that. And clearly, you've got that based on the sheer volume of countries you've played in, and the the different things you've the travels you've had and stuff. So, all of the best for that. Thank you very much, Jock. It's been a pleasure to have you on. If you have enjoyed any of Jock's hot takes, if you also want to run for NAF president, why not? Let us know. You know, we'll field the entrance. If there's anything you want to let us know about, Mr. Scott Bryant, how can people get in touch?
Mr. Chris Coe, if people do want to get in touch with us, if they want to share with us anything they've heard from Jock today, whether it's about high elves or whether it's about trauma from childhood, running around school in your pants, whatever you want to do, drop us a note. newdiceplease@gmail.com, all one word, all uppercase, lowercase, mixed case, whatever. You know the reasons by now. And a reminder as well that from the 26th of August 2026, so if you're listening to this on repeat, you may have missed it, but we will see the return of the Monday night roundup for the Aardvarks and Dragons ADBBL Season 10 kicking off in August, Blood Bowl. And yourself, Jock, if you are down in the Suffolk Woodbridge area and you want a game, there'll be plenty of people to stand you a table and at least a drink of something soft, I am sure. But if you want to get over to watch more ADBBL or any Blood Bowl action, or even listen to back past episodes of this craziness as well, Mr. Tom Hovell, that, and in the absence of Mr. Tom Feast, the word of the day. So where can people see us and hear us, and what word do they need to take with them on their journeys this evening?
Yeah, it has, and hang on, I also so Tom's camera has died on him, and also his sound is no longer being picked up in the corner of the output screen. So Tom, I can hear you and know that I love you, but I'll take this bit off you so it gets heard, and I'm very, very sorry. You can watch all of our previous games and roundups and everything else on YouTube at Blood Bowl Live. You can watch us live when the Monday night roundup returns and when the league starts again, and we'll bring you live tabletop Blood Bowl over at twitch.tv/Blood Bowl Live as well, and you can find us on Instagram and on Blue Sky.
Sorry, in the absence of Tom Feeks and because of Mr. Hovell's technical, the Tom Feeks word of the day, boobiala, which apparently is it's a name for a wattlebird, one of the family of honey eaters native to much of Australia. So who says you don't learn anything on this program?
Wonderful. Jock, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you very much, Mr. Bryant. Thank you very much, Mr. Hovell. Thank you, everybody, for listening. We have been New Dice Please, and we will see you next time.